Hey Balaji, welcome.
Hey
Welcome
Rajni, how are you
everyone
doing?
to
Yeah,
doing well, doing well. It's a cold day in Austin, so
likewise in
the temperature
California
is
too,
getting
relatively cooler.
yeah, so we are definitely went from ice to summer to back to winter. So it's definitely a crazy part of
Yeah,
the year. But what's more crazy happening right now is everything that's going on in the AI space, right? So I'm excited about
right.
covering some of the hot topics, getting your takes on it, and then I know you have a very interesting topic about how AI and all the new technologies are moving into a more decentralized world. So it's almost like to me how the two different technologies are kind of overlapping. So it's very interesting where that's going. I know I have some thoughts on it, so I'm interested in getting this started. So for everybody else, welcome to 1 Million Minds. We are on episode 12 on this deep tech 10 trends that we're reviewing. So we have so much good information to share with you. So let's get started.
All right. There you go.
All right. So before we kind of deep dive into our conversation, right? There's so much hype happening in the AI space. There's so much bad news also coming out. But if you kind of step back and see where we are, again, this is from July, but it hasn't changed. July 22, it hasn't changed that much in 6 months. But really, most of the excitement is around the generative AI, right? So whether it's Chat GPT, what Google's doing with Bard, just a bunch of stuff. And then I know that we can talk a little bit about the autonomous vehicle, but there's just a bunch of things that are happening that are in the hype cycle. So a lot of money, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of excitement is going into it. But we have to understand we are still 2 to 5 years away from this being an actual mainstream thing, right? So
Yeah,
just because it's fancy right now doesn't mean we are ready for prime time. So we'll go up all this. A lot of projects will crash and burn, and then we'll actually come out with projects that makes that could have a longevity, or maybe winners or the first movers will stay on. A lot of people fall by the wayside. I mean, just to letting you know, right? Right now, if you go to micro acquire any acquisition place, there's so many AI startups for sale, and these are all small ones. So if you look at just the dollar value, you can say, oh, it's only $5,000. I can get it. But the thing is, it might be the 900th version of the same functionality that somebody's
right.
built with the chat GPT or something behind it, the little interface. So images all crash and burn. So, but that's the bad news, right? The good news is there's a lot of money going into it as a founder, entrepreneur. If you have a really good vision, then you have accessibility, whether it's recession, whatever's happening in the macro trend, there's still a lot of excitement in space. So maybe you can get the funding that you need to build something that is actually helpful. So you have to take the good with the bad, but to me, always come back to this so I can sense that we still are very early in this. There's going to be good and bad, and a couple of years, maybe we'll see some real products solving real problems, and so that's what I'm excited about. Any thoughts on this, Balaji?
Ab- yeah, absolutely. I think it's almost like I think 2 weeks ago there was a lot of excitement. Now it's almost on the negative news cycle, right? The Google had some mishaps with the Bard, and now Microsoft Bing with all this thing. Everybody's like shut down the OpenAI. What is it called? Sydney Project Sydney. Um, so I think it's a good thing that it's in the public eye, so we can see what it can and cannot do. But eventually, I think all of this will get cleaned up, right, and get to the public use. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about that. And the second thing
yeah.
is all the VC money has moved out of blockchain or crypto projects now into AI. So I'm sure there's a lot of money flowing into AI projects now.
Yes, and again, they just like crypto is going through its winter. They like, oh, all these three things. For example, they were like first one about Tesla FSD recall, right? And then there was
Right.
the Google Bard that wasn't well received, $100 billion hit to the Google stock, and now Bing, right? Again, we have to be clear about this: is most people don't play around with edge cases. If you get a new toy, you're gonna say what breaks it, and people that's what they're doing. They're trying to make it say some nonsense, whether it's wrong or even some racist tone to it or something that is just what I'm saying is if you go searching for it, you're going to find. But there are people who've been amazed by there's a Wharton professor. He's put, hey, he had a conversation with the tool to say, should where should, he has does a lot of research. He's asked, hey, where should I focus my research? You know, I have the body of research already. So gave him a real good conversation and also gave him advice on what he should do. Asked him to write a R code, and he said, no, I can't. I mean, I can because then it takes away from your own thing. You can. It was having he was having a conversation where the tool was saying, I can't generate it because then it won't be your work, right? That's not how you've built your reputation. Keep it. So I'm
Right.
like, it was blew my mind. That's the good part. Of course, the bad part is I think the Bing's GPT thing is called. They found out it has a persona called Sydney, and when
Right.
you talk to it, there's some things you can say that like the rules of the game was like these are your rules, and Sydney personally got offended by it, and then they're talking crazy, and then they were deleting conversation. It'll type something out and it'll delete it because I don't think it was appropriate. I'm just saying it's amazing how much character has gone into this, but also we have to remember we are on the cutting edge of things, right? There is going to be some back and forth. Now people are understanding, okay, this is a lot of hype, but it's not quite ready for prime time. Do we pause Bing GPT before, clean up some of this before we go? So there's a lot happening and a lot of bad news are coming out, but also it's only 10% edge cases that these are happening. A lot of people are really enjoying using it. So I think this will continue, but I think we're not, a lot of these tools are not quite ready for prime time.
Right. I also I think I don't know whether you did, but I put myself on the waiting list for the Bing with the Chat GPT or OpenAI built into the backend, but I haven't received received a acknowledgement yet. I think it's kind of a limited preview as well. I don't know how many people have access to this. I think probably they opened it up to people who can actually um, uh, find the flaws, which is a good thing, right? So
Mhm.
now it's all coming out as a negative publicity or advertisement or whichever way you look at it. But eventually, I think when it's open for public or built into the next version
Cool.
that's public preview, hopefully it's a better version. So
I agree. But that's the kind of a roadmap of where we are, right? But what I also see, this is an article from A16Z. Like, I want to look into, like, if you were going to look 2, 3 years in the future, right? What are some opportunities you see here, which is what excites me in education and healthcare, and how do we, hone in on these opportunities? Right? Yes, you can talk about all the things that are wrong, but there's so much opportunity that I see in this space for a builder, an entrepreneur, an investor to look into. And I think I love the education market and healthcare market just because I feel like it's a market ripe for opportunity, like for disruption. So that's what I started looking into because I also owned online education tutoring company at one point, so it's close to my heart. So that's what I wanted to kind of hone in on. Okay, we've talked about the bad, we've talked about the roadmap where we are in the cycle. Let's talk about some opportunities, right? So one of the
right,
things is a lot of students, it has been shown that when you have one-on-one individualized learning, a student can go up to 2 grade levels, right? So when you talk about crowded schools or teachers not having the same caliber of teachers everywhere, imagine being able to have a chatbot or something that can teach
personal
somebody
teacher, yeah,
one-on-one.
yeah,
Yeah, so it could be at the college level, I mean, school level, it could be at a business level, it could be a mentorship coaching from any concept, right? If you could, let's say you had a bot that was, if you're a big fan of Elon, but if you say, what would Elon do? If you could have a conversation with them the entire time you're making decision, how cool would that be, right? So to me, the possibility of being able to do something like that just blows my mind because right now somebody in Africa and India could be having a one-on-one conversation, what not with a real person, but a model that was built on based on what all the years of experience somebody's put out, right? So
right,
that one is just amazing for me. So and then again, we can go into personalized learning where some people are visual, some people are text. And I think just before we got online, we talked about how the generative AI helps you convert from text to visual. What if you could bring your kid's favorite character into the story or whatever they're trying to learn? How much easier they're going to consume that information, right? So
yeah,
that's where the individualized learning goes into. And or anytime new tools come into play, the students and teachers who use it first are the natural trendsetters. So I think they'll be the ones first use these tools. So a new generation of AI first tools for both student and teacher will come in. And then if you kind of step back and you look at, I've been because I'm looking at a software company, it's based out of South America. They do this for recruiting. They do assessments, psychometrics, and all that. So basically, not just a resume, you can put them through a hacker rank kind of tool where it tells you you're this good with the Java, you're this good with the databases, and then just your psychometric evaluation to just understand what kind of person you get. So you present a full picture of the candidate to the employers. So similar to
Yep.
that, can we do this for public school, college admissions, and understand how much of the work they've done maybe is AI assisted versus original work. So it's that's a fourth concept that made sense. And the last one is as more generative AI information comes out, is more critical to be able to validate whether there's truth in it, what kind of orientation does it have, how do we judge this? So that is going to be its own set of opportunities that I see. But overall, I just feel like education market is primed for this, and there's a lot of layers of opportunities that I see in there. So I'll let you give you a feedback on that.
Yeah, I like the way you are approaching this particular vertical, right? I think there is a lot of disruption that's happening in the education market itself. I think it's going to bring, in a way or shape, like over the years, a lot of information is accumulated in the internet. Now we have to find a better, efficient way to fact check and serve it as a education material, right? That's the key, right? And some people know how to query and bring that information out, and probably some don't. And how do you cater to both, right? So people who know how to query this are going to say, hey, I don't need teaching, I can go ask a question and I can get an answer out of this. But I think the other side of the equation is people who need to be fed in manageable pieces to consume, right? So that's where I think what you're talking about, one-on-one, or these specialized bots which kind of feed the
Mhm.
information to people who can consume them bite size. I think it's going to be fascinating how this evolves.
I agree. So, kind of just building on that, the next big opportunity area I see is the AI in healthcare, just like we've talked about, right? Because I've worked in the healthcare for 8 years, and one of the toughest things for me was there's so much tribal knowledge, when, especially on the revenue cycle side of things, and even at the front end where you're dealing with it. I always mess with my doctor friends is, hey, at the end of the day, if I enter symptoms into a tool, they might be able to diagnose better than you can, right? I'm joking about it, but the reality is it is going to happen at some point where I'm not saying the human touch of the doctor interaction is going to go away, but you can enhance the decision making, right? You if you have just like a lawyer, if you had every single case that was ever decided, and you have that portfolio or even a symptoms, and then you kind of hone in on that, it just feels like as AI assisted healthcare will just make sense, right? So along those lines, there, okay, what does it need to have? Now, the main thing is the data, right? There's a lot of healthcare data is private, so being able to, I think Google and DeepMind are doing this is they now teaching uh, the medical domain to their models and making sure professional non-professional can interact with it and deliver get the information they want. And I know that other people are working on this too, the medical AI research. They are, I think this is a more public one, they're using this foundation model for building teams. So at the end of the day, what I'm envisioning is whether it's a hospital-based chatbots or a WebMD-based chatbots, depending on what is the data we there, instead of us just doing a search on Google and figuring out what it is, I think we can get some more deeper discussions with back and forth to find, maybe identify. I mean, everybody could become a doctor. That's the downside, but also be able to identify. Oh, my left arm is numb. Am I getting a heart attack? It's funny because I slept on it wrong yesterday. The first thing in my arms are tingling and says, "You could have a heart attack." No, right? So the bottom line is, I think it will get you another level. Even if you take the end user like me and you out of it, for a for a nurse, for a first year nurse versus the 10-year nurse, that those gaps are going to get lower and lower once you get a tool like this to support them. So I'm excited about this.
To me, I think I have my personal opinion formed after 20 years in US, right? I think so. One of the things, I'm a different type of a person when it comes to this medical attention or whatever, doctors and hospitals, right? So my personal view is like I would rather have the doctor have more personal touch than um, be recommending things because I'm in a very litigious state and the insurance costs are high. So this is the strangest thing I felt coming from India to US. It's like it's almost like the the healthcare here is more like there's first of all there's fewer doctors. Second of all, it's a very litigious state, and third part of all this, the byproduct is now I have to become a doctor, and I don't want to become a doctor. Right? I don't want to diagnose my own problem. Every question comes back to you have choice A, B, or C. Which medicine do you want to take? It's like I don't know. Just tell me what to take. So this is the I think. This is what I think from what you're saying. I love the fact that AI is going to come into this particular field. Hopefully, they let it disrupt it in such a way that all these insurance things disappear, so people can confidently do things and get to the personal side of being a doctor, not necessarily uh, just numbers based game, right?
Got it.
And the insurance, the billing system is horrific in the medical field, right? The insurance and the billing, and a lot of private practices they literally hate this billing system, how to get this bill through the system. So I think long and short of it is it's two places. The insurance industry itself should probably be revamped to make things a lot easier, and the second thing is let doctors get back to more personal side of things and not be insurance bound, so to speak.
Yes,
If I'm
there definitely is. To your point, you're absolutely right, right? Because I worked on the payment side of things. Doctors didn't become, just like a chef didn't become a restaurateur because he wanted to deal with taxes and employees. He wanted to cook. That's why
right,
most chefs make star restaurant. But then you
right,
realize you do that 20-30% of what you do. 70% is overhead of, hey, how did I pay rent, the electricity, do people show up to work? How do I market my, so that's, so if you kind of put that in the doctors, I think doctors became doctors to do billing and rejection, but you know what I'm saying? That's not what they want to take care of patients. So to your point, if this releases them to do more patient care, then it's a win. So what does that translate to
absolutely,
from a billing side, from a confidence? Because sometimes you're so afraid of you might miss something, you put them through a lot of tests, whether it's from a business perspective, whether it's from CYA perspective. I don't think we're using the whole system the most efficient way, right? So what
right.
hopefully that changes to saying, okay, you know what, the probability of this is 80 or 90% more, so I'm going to focus on this instead of saying there's a 10% chance of this. Maybe I'll get there, but you don't have to do the whole broad thing. And then to your point, I think insurances and everything's going to value based, where you don't get paid because some patients come sees you 10 times. If you they see you two times and you're actually better, then it's better
Right,
for you and the insurance.
right.
So I think those are the places where you're absolutely right. There's an opportunity for this to technology to disrupt the market, and I feel like we are getting there. And yes, you and I should now want to be a doctor. What is interesting?
I know. I think a lot of companies push the cost to the customer, eventually send them the cost benefit back to them by making them do things themselves, right? But one thing I don't want to do is become my own doctor, because even doctors are poor doctors for themselves, right? They are not good patients for themselves. So I think that tells you, right? You need a doctor. You don't want to be one. That's a tough
So, but just as a pushback is, I love Dr. House, the show, and I've always wanted to be like him. So I'm just letting you know.
one. Gotcha.
All right. All right. So this one, it's a busy slide, so I'm not gonna read through this. But what I wanted to show is based on, if you go to Twitter and look for based on trend map for generative AI, I mean, there's hundreds of companies, but what they've done, at least useful for me, is put a landscape together to show, hey, if you are interested in marketing and sales copy, these are companies to look at. If you look at interest in design, and if you're just interested in platforms, so just do a search. because I'm really interested in the summarization insights. I'm actually going to talk to my company about now that Teams has a premium option that's going to come through whenever in the next few months, hopefully, where once ChatGPT is also part of it, where you can do notes and decision points and action items for meetings. Because I'm in more meetings than I ever want to be in, but also as a program manager, project manager, there's so much notes that people want because not everybody's paying attention. So they want to, like a concise summary and action points coming out of it. I feel like a program project manager in any company will, that's like 60%. And just like I talk about the restaurant, the doctor, what you want to do versus what the grunt work you do, the 70% of the time is this things. If that can be the summers and the insight thing can get better, I'll be the first early adopter on it. I'm going to be jumping head first into some opportunities like that. So
That's
anyway,
right.
so what I'm saying is everybody has their own interest, right? So it'll be great to kind of pick the area of thing that you want to learn more about and then go, follow these companies. So I just wanted um, to kind of flash this on, do the search. It's just, I like seeing these things and it helps me kind of shortlist the companies I want to research. So
Yeah, it's a nice everything in a single slide type of a thing to have, right? To reference material, like it.
awesome. All right. Now I want to turn to the second topic we're going to cover today. I'm excited about it because how does basically blockchain and AI, MI, our data, how they all interact, intersecting. So I'm excited to hear about this, Balaji.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why I picked this week is that I started looking into this particular whatever the hype with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and then eventually I started looking into, hey, what's happening in the blockchain world, because we started this particular the episodes here with the crypto and blockchain, and then now there's kind of a information flow back and forth. I thought it'll be a nice addition to start looking there as well. So I kind of found, we know we discussed one of the projects before called Graph, very early episode. I don't remember the exact
Yes,
number.
yes.
But Graph is essentially kind of an indexer for the blockchains, and it kind of creates the Google for the blockchain world type of thing, where you can register your in whatever logic you want, and queries, and try to make economic sense out of it, right? So there are other projects which are looks like they're active in the same field since 2017. So the three of them that I wanted to focus, which I wanted to bring to attention, was Singularity Net, uh, Fetch.ai, and the Ocean Protocol. Each one, I mean, they might sometimes they look pretty similar in some aspects, but they're also handling the problem different ways. So I thought I'll share that with folks. Um, so let's take a look at the Singularity Net. So this particular project creates a decentralized AI marketplace running on blockchain. So essentially, people come create AI applications or services, and try to sell it in this marketplace. Now, the key element of this is basically a service, of course, which is published through the AI publishing service they have, which provides creating, sharing, and monetizing AI aspects of things, right? So, what are these? Some of the examples are if you have a particular AI workflow where you can take a multi-track, whatever, a single audio MP3 file, and you want to separate the vocals into different tracks. That's one of the things that they recently posted in there. Or you want image segmentation, or any of these cooler AI projects that you want to create and stitch together your own solution. People can go there, create it, and try to make money off of the decentralized economy, right? And the services are composed of these agents, which basically you publish, and they are modular and reusable, and they can connect one agent to another to create complex systems. That's the hope, right? I think this project is 2017. I think it's still very early on, but I think they are trying to get to a more generic, like they call it the AGI, right? General
Mhm.
artificial general intelligence, so to speak, model with OpenCog Alliance, which can deal with much more. complex problems. Right now in the marketplace, you can see a single specific AI job being done, type of thing for some tokens. So the token they have is AGIX, which is a utility token. Essentially, it's used within the ecosystem itself for payment, governance, staking, and all the usual ways nowadays. I'm not even going to go deeper into that because every project now has these keywords, right? The tokenomics as payment, governance, staking, all of those included. It's an Ethereum based project, so that gives them probably a leg up in the what do you call the trust,
Adoption. Yeah.
trust and adoption, and the early
Security. Yeah. Mhm.
partnerships and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the Singularity Net. So what do you think?
That is pretty cool. I mean, I didn't know about it, so I'm learning as you're talking about it. That is very cool. How I mean, we talked about this earlier, right? Like basically building it on Rails, and that's the best thing about the Ethereum ecosystem. But being able to publish and monetize their services. So when I say AI publisher, so this is like we talk about copy AI, something they can create their own d- um, content, or when you say a publisher, what is that envision,
So, so,
encompass as?
so think of it this way, right? So again, I think one of the complaints I think Elon is as recent as yesterday is like OpenAI is supposed to be an
Mhm.
open source project. Now somebody bought it and monetizing, right? I think this is why these type of projects need to exist in the blockchain, where even if you wanted to, it's not. It's a community based thing, and it's the ethos is different
Got it.
than the open source. I think so. That's one way to look at it. So anything that's being done in the traditional way, you can bring it in here and try to monetize the tokenomics of it.
Got it.
So
Okay.
the key element I think probably you're trying to arrive at is where does the data come from, right? So these guys, I
Hmm.
think there's three projects here. The Ocean protocol is purely for data, right? So Singularity Net, obviously, they partnered with Ocean protocol, so it's accessible. The data can be brought into the system to actually use into these workflows. So yeah, I think it all starts with data. If you have some data, then what do you do with it? Like you want to create some workflows, bring it into this, and create an agent and create a workflow. Other people will stitch it together, and I think the dollar gets split 10 different ways depending on which agents are being used.
I mean, that's where you brought this the graph, s- which is a similar concept, right? Where you bring in data and you do some workflows on top, and this is exactly the same. So at the end of the day, your private data, your whatever your access to that data makes your system more unique than something else somebody else develops. Got it.
Right. So in the graph system, I think the initial idea they were going after is the indexer for the blockchain. So let's go after different blockchains. There's a lot of them now, and start
Mhm.
indexing them for valuable information. So it's kind of it's also serving as a way to acquire data, right? So these Singularity Net systems, you can bring in if you're a data scientist or if you're an enterprise and you already have data and you want to uh, train something on the data, or you want to create a particular use case from the data that you have collected. So you're coming in with data already, right? So different angles at it. So if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yes.
So I think the next slide is just like yours, right? Who are all in the ecosystem? I think recently Cisco also partnered with them for some aspect of AI data massaging, I guess. So just serves as like it's kind of looking like a growing ecosystem of projects, and that's another aspect of how popular. Again, if you keep an eye on this over time, probably we'll know like whether it gains traction or not.
Hmm.
All right, let's go to the next one, which is fetch .io. Again, this is the terminology of an agent comes here as well, services agents, but as opposed to Singularity Net are specialized agents. They are AI agents, right? So the fetch IO is more like it can be a goal-based generic type of agent. So you can set a simplest way to explain is you have a bunch of if-else type of things coded in there. If the data arrives this way, I think another way of looking at it is like a thermostat, right? If your IoT data comes in this way, adjust the temperature that way, or things like that, right? So you can call that a micro agent. Your Nest thermostat could technically be one of those micro agents, right? It is getting data input, and in response to the data, it's doing something. Think of it that way.
Got it.
So it's not necessarily AI. It could be ML. It could be simply your supply chain logic or automotive, whatever, based on IoT. It's changing something else. It could be any of those. So this is handling agents in a much more generic sense. But the key here is it's autonomous agents, right? So they sense input, they act autonomous. You don't need to direct it. It'll start behaving certain way, and the system is built to connect a lot of this multi-agent and create a complex workflow again, right? So um, that's basically the key difference between the agent in that's purely a AI vertical, and this is not necessarily AI. It can be any kind of algorithm. It's algorithmic agent. I think you can say that in some
Got it.
way. So I think you can see that it applies to more supply chain, automotive, and even in the partnerships, you can see some automobile companies, and it applies probably to DeFi. You can create agents to broker certain things or microtransactions and things like that. Um, this is again the another key difference between the other one and this one is that this is its own. They have their own blockchain, whereas the
Yeah.
other one is Ethereum based. So that also creates this problem for them to interoperability, right? So they go with Cosmos
Yeah.
IBC bridges. I think we spoke about bridges in one of the other episodes. So that's how they get around that problem of not Ethereum, right? So um,
Got it. So just to support that. Got it. Okay.
yeah, so that's Fetch.
So from I mean, again, I'm so new to this. So just curious. I know the other ecosystems feels like Singularity is a little bit more. I shouldn't say adoption based on what you show. Is this brand new thing, Fetch.io, or has it been around? And is there
Fetch.io,
adoption
I
in
think
this?
it's 2019, if I remember that right. As opposed to
Okay, still been at least
Singularity Net and Ocean, they are 2017 projects. This is a 2019
okay.
according to whatever I found. So yeah, it's relatively new.
Still,
It's still building partnerships.
it's good though having these options to build these things. Yes, I mean, again, just like we saw, we are very very early in this whole uh, cycle, right? So I think there's going to be winners and losers, but it just feels like we're building the rails for a lot of really cool projects in the future.
Right. I think the key here is options, like you mentioned, right? So anybody,
Mhm.
any company or corporation or people with data, they need a few options, right? I think it's good that there is competition. It's good that each one has a slightly different angle of approaching the
Yeah,
problem. So depending on what your needs are, you can end up in Singularity Net if it's AI specific, or it's uh, more like a generic sense, get into Fetch.io. So again, I would also say Fetch.io is like more peer-to-peer, machine-to-machine type of agent communication platform. So again, trying to bring some traditional keywords, right? M2M, peer-to-peer type of thing. That's what I found from their documentation, I believe. So again, uh, for people coming from traditional side, whichever matches your migration path or how you want to go from one to another.
got it.
All right. So these are the partners. You can see a lot of automotive industry partners here, and some telecom, T-Mobile. So there are big names. I think a lot of big companies are really interested in
Definitely a
trying
lot
to
of
get to.
known brands, right? T-Mobile, Binance,
Yeah.
Bosch. Okay, that's good though. It feels like in a few years, all this we won't talk about it as a new technology. It just will be an underlying. We don't talk about voice. I mean, voice or IP or even the IPv6, how we connect to each other. So I
Right.
think we'll just talk about it when we start talking about actual functionality and what it's providing rather than what rails it's on, I think that's when we hit mainstream. So I'm excited about where it's all headed.
Absolutely, absolutely. The last one we have is the Ocean Protocol. This is quite different from the other two because these guys focus on data. So they call themselves a decentralized marketplace or a DEX for data, right? In the future, I think this is definitely true. Right, data is your intellectual property. It is your it is your key proprietary element of your company, right? So the problem now is how do you take that and share with others in a very controlled way so that's not stolen or misused. And so I think a lot of this is falling into the core expertise of blockchain itself, right? So which is privacy and how you can share without actually divulging everything. That's what creates this wonderful alliance between the blockchain world and the data itself that's existing out there, that's becoming the source of all this learning that machines are doing. So I think Ocean Protocol in this sense is focusing primarily how can I take your data and present it for training in a very secure way. So at the end of the training, it's not like the person who trained stole all your data and ran away with it, or they took all your data. How can I set rights? How can I share data in a secure fashion? And how can people who consume this are given this confidence about the provenance, like where is the origin of the data, who has this data, is it credible? So the provenance is another key aspect of um, data collection as well, right? Where is this data coming from? How do you know that's where the
Yeah,
data came from?
that was my the two-sided, right? One of them is if I'm going to be selling data, I can make up all this stuff. So
Right.
validating that I'm giving
Well,
value in the data. But on the other side, I'm a little like, how do you prevent, for example, when we use highly sensitive data in our databases, we scramble it a little bit, right? Whether it's credit card data, it's social security, PHI data, we scramble it because we still want to make sure this, when we're testing, this all works. So how would you like if how do you mask your data to be able to, like I say, let's say I'm into healthcare app, right? I can have somebody who's sharing their app healthcare data so I can pay them for that. But once I have my model built, do I, anytime somebody pays me for it, do I give them a percentage? I'm trying to understand. Once I consume the data, it becomes obsolete unless there's another version, a newer data you're giving me. How does this work? Like, how do you do the
right. So yeah, that's a good question. I have to go look at some of the material to actually get the right answer. But I'm going out on a limb here. I think there could be some transformation involved because it's a protocol itself. So maybe the data itself get transformed in a way to suit the way this protocol operates. Because obviously they are taking your data and giving it to a distributed network of nodes to consume it and train and do things like that, right? So I'm guessing there has to be some transformation, but I'm not sure. I'm going to go take a look. That's a very good question. How do they let you? Is it in the original form that exists in your enterprise, or do you have to actually transform it into a way that Ocean Protocol wants it? That way, it's not tampered with, right? It's not,
correct?
yeah, it's not, yeah. And how do you verify the authenticity is the key question too, right? Who's that? Somebody created customer list with the Excel spreadsheet, and that's JP Morgan suing somebody, right? So what is the actual source of the customer data? So yes, these are all the things, the problems this particular project is going to tackle, right? Or at least the roadmap is basically all of that. And I think it's good to have one project focusing entirely on data itself rather than
Agree.
the entire system. So another thing I wanted to highlight is that every person who brings in data creates this IDO, they call it data offering. So you get your own type of token. So anybody who consumes probably uses the token to consume type of thing. So the initial data offering is the first time I came across that word. I know there's ISPOs, ICOs, maybe this is IDO. So it kind of creates this environment for data heavy companies to come in and make some economic sense out of it. So that's pretty much it. Ocean is
Right.
their cryptocurrency, and it's used in governance staking, and it's an Ethereum-based system again. So they
So
partnered with
this is a
Singularity
big,
Nets.
yeah, this is a big hairy problem, right? But if they can find a solution to it, this is going to be an incredible company. But just like everything else, it's so early. I want to follow this to see where they go, because at the end of the day, data if is really is the new gold or oil, however you want to call it, and they are going to be the pipeline for it, for lack of a better analogy. This is an amazing business to be in. So
Yep, absolutely. Um, Again, the ecosystem. You can see Benz. You can see Rocher. I mean, there are known names here. Mastercard. Like I said, I think a lot of these projects are getting industry attention, and people are investing time trying to get the infrastructure going, which is really good thing.
yeah, what I'm seeing is this is solving real world problems when you see real brands here, right? It's not like it's a just a crypto world. There's one crypto company and the other company is using this the other crypto company. You know what I'm saying? This is like a real world solution to some problem these companies are having. So I think we are getting to that stage of the market. So it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I think that's the key element of all of this, right? It has to provide some value to the people who are consuming it, right? So these projects are providing value here. So
Yeah, we've graduated from the retail investor or the early adopters, people like you and me, playing around with these projects to actual companies using it, which means now we are actually offering value. So I'm excited. So I'm hoping the next cycle of crypto will be where we are solving problems. And as an investor, I'm excited about finding the opportunities where I see, right? Like you might see opportunity in healthcare. I see in education, whatever, right? So we have our
yeah,
own verticals to kind of dive into. So
absolutely.
exciting. Awesome.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you, Balaji. That was very informative for me. So I appreciate you putting that together. And I know we have a couple of cool ideas planned for the next subsequent episodes. So I'm excited about that. Stay warm. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you guys next time.
absolutely. Thanks, Rajni. Thanks, everyone.